This is Tijo with the Arcane Bear. We have another fantastic guest for you today, the famous Bradon Kelly, who has his patented, well, I'm sure it's not actually patented, but his boss trading method. So we'll ask you a few questions about that. Welcome to the show. How are you doing today, Bradon?
I'm good, man. Thank you for having me. I've been a fan of your channel for a while, so it's good to be able to reconnect and, start some synergistic energies together.
Yeah, I feel the same way. We have a lot of similar ideas about helping people, the harmonics of trading, some of those more esoteric versions of mathematics that we can use to find ROI or returns on the investment from using this abstract stuff. So do you want to lead us into a little bit about how your boss method works and how you came up with it?
Yeah, man. It's been a journey, to say the least. A little bit of background on me. I guess we should lay the foundation. That way we
Perfect.
can, build it out together. My background has been all in mathematics and science. STEM education from second grade on up. 10th grade, soft high school. I did 32 in the ACT. My mind works with numbers, and so my whole life I've understood that numbers was the language of the universe. And even in college, I went on and got a civil engineering degree, took 6 semesters of calculus, graduated from school during the recession, couldn't get a job, became a math teacher, started teaching mathematics.
Wow.
And so that's when I started. I remember my first class was middle school, 7th grade math, and just basic straight line algebra, some long division stuff, and I did the lesson, and the kids were just looking at me like, what is that? We don't understand anything. And I spent about 20 minutes at the board and turned around and just saw blank faces, and so I was like, I have to break it down and make it simple and communicate in a language that they understand. And, that's kind of what I try to do with my channel is put it in, relative terms, right? It doesn't always have to be so complicated and, so technical to where it's all the way up here and the everyday person has no idea what you're talking about. So at the end of the day, that's what the boss method does better than anything, is it makes it very simple and very concrete how to make money in the market and what action you should do. At the end of the day, you just want to know one of two things. Should you buy it or should you sell it? And that's what the boss method does. It divides everything in half, polarizes it, above buy, below sell, and we do pretty well with it.
That's great. So with that in mind, what kind of mathematics are you using to come up with this particular method?
A lot. It's under the engine is pretty complicated. I mean, on the surface, it's kind of honestly, it's kind of like a MacBook or Apple iOS. On the surface, it's very clean, very lucid. You can see exactly what you're doing, but under the hood, it's a lot of technical things going. So a little bit of fractal harmonics. In designing this thing, I learned a lot about the Julian set and the history of fractals, what they mean, what they do. I learned a lot about the Fibonacci and universal harmonics, just the interconnectedness of one. And then I also used a lot of rules of mathematics, algebra. The transitive law of equality. If A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C, right? And that's basically what we do on my charts is I say, okay, guys, this is our first section. This is A. Okay, this is our current section. This is B. Now we have to figure out C. And in order to do that, we just draw a straight line between A and B, and therefore we can infer C, right? And lately, I've been tuned to the fact that it's more astrology than anything, in the sense that I am mapping energy and fractals and cycles, a little bit of quantum mechanics with the, just trying to pinpoint the moments in time when you can expect energy to dissipate or to extend itself further. And so that comes back to some engineering, statics, dynamics, moments, torque, inertia, projectile motion, throwing a baseball, how far will a baseball go? And all of that, when I draw my charts on my video, that's the information I'm pulling from behind the scenes, under the hood, to figure out where that next intersection can go. But that's kind of a high level how it works.
I use a lot of, I don't trade that often. I usually look for specific investments in teams and business models that I like. I just buy, and if at best I sell those large extensions on the Fibonacci tool. It's one of the only tools I actually use, because I myself was really inspired by noticing that connection between these subtle divine mathematics, like A squared or A equals B C, this Pythagoras theorem. This is how you figure out all the notes in music, as well as all the colors in the spectrum of light. So it was really unique to see the connection between something, especially when I was younger. Business didn't really have an esoteric aspect to it, and seeing this as the esoteric mathematics form in this ecosystem was one of the things that really caught my eye when I first started trading. Are there any tokens that you are actively trading over the next few months, or are you looking at a value investment portfolio such as mine, or are you actively trading?
Both. It's two sides to it, and this is kind of how I break out when I do my one-on-one meetings. It's really two sides to it. It's a trading side and an investing side. And so with trading, this is where we use the boss method to beat the market, to basically accumulate within a small time frame, right? We'll put that over here. This is our small time frame over here. Versus investing, this is where we let time work for us, right? So over here, we're working against time. Over here, time is working for us. And that's where it's split down the middle. And the better we do over here, the more we send over to the investing side, right? So I have two and each has its own methodology, its own psychology, its own strategy, right? And so my method, for example, can be used for traders or investors. All you do is scale it in or scale it out, depending on how engaged or how frequent you want to move the money from side to side.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. There are a lot of short-term positions you can take that do really well. With that in mind, do you know any of the current tax laws in the United States about moving in and out of assets? I myself, as a Canadian, don't have to abide by those rules, but I know a lot of our audience members are from the United States. Have you checked into any of that?
Yes, I have, and this will be something that I'm actually releasing content on in the upcoming months. It's something that I was asked a lot. I've done a lot of research on my end, and it's just kind of one of the laws of the land, literally and figuratively, that taxes are implications in cryptocurrency. So, given my accreditation from the University of Notre Dame, I'm quite familiar in how to accommodate that process and that due diligence. And so over the next couple weeks, I will be releasing information just in time for tax season. Nice. For all the crypto traders out there.
Perfect. Well, I'll make sure I keep an eye on that one too. So when you release that, make sure you send it my way. Yeah. I'll like it and make sure it ends up on my playlist. And while we're at that point, remember guys, if you're part of the Bear family and you haven't checked out of any of Brandon Kelly's stuff, go into YouTube. Brandon Kelly, really easy to find. Check out his Trader Boss method. He goes into it a little bit deeper. Do you have a website for yourself as well?
Yes, bossofbitcoin.com.
Bossofbitcoin.com. We'll make sure those are all down below as well. So with these new tax laws in mind, are you aiming to trade less and do more long-term investing, or are you still focused on actively trading?
I think that therein lies the opportunity. Just the fact that bureaucracy can influence market actions is the entire reason cryptocurrency exists in the first place, right? So if your question is, am I allowing bureaucracy to influence my actions in the market? No, I am not. But outside of the market, I am being proactive to facilitate, the system that bureaucracy places cryptocurrency around. So it's kind of a two-sided equation, right? I don't think people need to effectively hinder themselves in the market by limiting their effectiveness and saying, oh, I don't want to make money, so I don't have to pay taxes on it. I think that's foolish, right? I learned from a lot of people with a lot of money that you make as much money as fast as possible when you worry about taxes when you need to worry about taxes, right? And the good thing about having a business and being incorporated is that the more money you spend, the less tax liability you have. And again, this will all be discussed later with the content I'm creating. However, Bitcoin is a recognized asset, cash is a recognized asset, real estate is a recognized asset, and when businesses operate, they can facilitate transactions around any asset they like on behalf of their business. And again, this will be just tabulated and expensed out accordingly on a balance sheet that Uncle Sam can read and check off, on his due diligence. But I don't think people should limit themselves in the market effectively being afraid of a potential tax liability. If that's the case, then they really are, disempowering themselves instead of empowering themselves through cryptocurrency.
Yeah, it's a very good point. The reason we got into these decentralized systems is because it really moves some of the control methods that have been put in place, such as these new tax implementations, which can really affect people's entry and or exit into the ecosystem. So with that in mind, do you have any short-term trades you're currently looking at that you want to share?
Yeah, we can discuss the market. I think right now is a very interesting time in the market. It's like every time is an interesting time, right? We're always learning. That's the beautiful thing about energy. It never stops. It merely just transforms into the next cycle. So effectively right now, here it is, the first week of January, we are in between cycles. We had a little bit of a run towards the end of December with the altcoins. Bitcoin kind of took a break. However, I do believe Bitcoin will continue to push higher going into the next month. So what that means is the market is almost like a heartbeat, right, of one complete unit, right? When one side beats, the other side relaxes. All of the money inside the market is one complete nervous system, right? It's one single source of energy. Once that money enters cryptocurrency, it becomes part of that system, part of that collective. And so as Bitcoin, this last part of the cycle, for example, Bitcoin went up, the altcoins went down. One side constricts, tightens up, absorbs all the money, other side relaxes, loosens, and that money flows through to the other side. So I think that might be happening again over the next 2 to 3 weeks as Bitcoin looks like it's going to push up to 18, 19,000. If it breaks through that, we can expect to go to 22, 25. And if that happens, that money has to come from somewhere. And given that Wall Street is still at an all-time high, you got a lot of, I call them bobbleheads on television, not necessarily advocating for Bitcoin, but because they're in fact buying it themselves, they can no longer, disavow it. So it's kind of a middle road for them. But once they come full circle, which will begin in the spring, then we will pass $1 trillion market cap. Bitcoin will probably be north of 25,000, and you'll see a lot of these altcoins 40, 50, 60, 70% gains in Bitcoin.
Yeah, I agree with you. I had charted it out. It looks like the energy into Bitcoin will probably consolidate around this area before moving into the higher place, giving I would suspect, like you said, around 2 to 3 weeks, maybe even a month longer of a lot of action in the digital asset or alternative digital asset space before moving into Bitcoin for that next $25,000 to potentially $60,000 run from where we just were. So it's extremely exciting. Are there any
individual coins?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, whatever you would like to share with us. If there's any tokens that you guys are interested in. I mean, there's so much in the ecosystem. It's hard to pay attention.
Yeah. Well, one of the resources I have on my website, bossofbitcoin.com, I have these, exactly what you asked for. Top picks in certain situations. So, for example, this is the Cryptopolis report, right? It's literally 10 picks that I divided up between financial, retail, technology, and industrial. And I give a little bit of breakdown on the history of the coin, the value it's providing, and how that will be used to position that coin for success in the future, given the evolving landscape of the cryptoverse. And so one coin in particular I see right off the top is Walton coin, WTC, Walton chain coin. They specialize in RFID chips. They're basically bringing Walmart's business to the blockchain. Now, does that mean that this is Walmart's company that's funding this entity? because they have the same name, I am not one to decide that, but I know from University of Notre Dame that Walmart specialized in RFID chips, and they are more of a logistics and distribution company, and on top of a real estate company, than they are a retail company, right? So when you look under the engine of a lot of these big companies, you can see blockchain formations that are catering to what that company does best. So Walton Chain Coin is definitely a good one right now. Bitcoin Cash is going to be huge over the next 3 to 4 months when you have another rise in energy coming out of that one. And Zcash. We just talked about Zcash on my video last night. That was actually the video I did last night, showing that Zcash was basically hitting a polar reversal where it's been going down for 6 months. Right now, it's basically at a flat line, and we can expect a 2 to 3 month breakout, potentially reaching in 100% profit in the next 50 days. So, those are some for the immediate market right now.
And just to clarify, because I know there's a few different versions. Is there Z Classic, Zencash?
Right.
Which one of those is it?
It's a lot of
markers.
It's a lot of them. I'm speaking of the original. So Zcash is ZCSH, I believe. And then it forked a few times, and new products were built on that blockchain. So Zencoin, Z Classic, Zencash, those are kind of derivatives of the original. The original is ZCSH, and that's the one that actually partnered with Wells Fargo back in March 2017. You can just Google JP Morgan Zcash, and you'll find number 2 link on the list. Forbes.com actually has an article showing that Zcash and Wells Fargo partnered together so that Zcash could start to build out some of the enterprise security software that Wells Fargo operates with.
Oh wow, that's a big move. It's what's difficult to do is keep up with how much is going on in this ecosystem.
Right.
It's one of the reasons why I pick a few of my favorites, and I try not to look too much outside
Right.
of my horse blinders, because you see a coin go. Paragon was up almost 1,000% for one day, and a lot of people end up chasing
Right.
these different token rushes, etc. So I'll make sure that we put links for the Walton Chain Coin as well as. Not Classic, but Zcash, is that correct?
Yeah, Zcash, ZEC.
Nice, perfect. And then what about your long-term portfolio? Are there any that you just add exposure to all the time, aside from Bitcoin?
Right, and so now we're moving over to the investing side where I let time work for me.
Yeah.
And so some of the coins I value for that is actually the Walton Chain coin. I think that's going to be a long-term play with RFID chips and blockchain security, basically, a seamless integration together. Another one is Bitcoin Cash. Another one is Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is just one of the coins I value for the long term. And then you have the different industries. And this is what I talk about in Cryptopolis. Then you have to really start to imagine what we're building as a new civilization, as an entire ecosystem. And so you almost want to section it off, just like Bloomberg does, for their sector rotation. You want to divide it into healthcare, retail, industrial, commercial, technology, privacy. And so I try to pick 1 or 2 coins from each sector to where no matter what, I'm accumulating those in the short term, but also holding them for the long term. And as those industries grow out on the blockchain, these coins will be the leaders, and therefore I'm hedged both ways.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to diversify. I think even the nomenclature has caused a lot of confusion for people. First off, from the confusions of the names of the brands themselves, from Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash to Z Classic and Zencash, just like we were saying, but also to the cryptocurrency aspect, that a lot of these aren't currencies. They're designed to be utility tokens that have a use case in an ecosystem of business itself. Just like you're saying with Walton coin, it doesn't seem like it's a currency so much as it's a way to keep track of the distribution and manufacturing of products through the product and assembly line, etc., which doesn't really make it a coin, but it gives it that utility use. So I think that's a really smart play to invest in the different sectors, because there's a lot of companies that are still trying to be the fastest currency or the most anonymous, but there's these wide open gapes in the financial sector. I got into Populous maybe at around $2, and it moved to $50 because you can see that there is almost no competition in that particular space. So I think what you've done there is a is extremely intelligent. And I love hearing how many similarities into the styles of investing, even though we're completely different types of people, the similarity in choices in investment. So what's your outlook for the rest of 2018? I know we'll hit $1 trillion probably in the next few months, but do you have any outlandish predictions or insights to what the end of 2018 might hold?
It's crazy, man. It's pretty exciting, what is happening. I mean, this is an amazing time to be alive. Honestly, I feel honored and privileged just to have the opportunity to kind of not even mold, but really just document this space. All I do is report on the charts, but what I see in the charts is that there is a lot of energy coming back into Bitcoin. This is literally just taking a little nap right now, right between 16 and 17,000. Right, we will confirm north of probably 30 to 40,000 with a high between 90 and 120, and probably, if you understand statistics, an interquartile range between 40 and 65. So we can go as high as 110, 120. We're almost guaranteed to even out about 35, but most likely we'll spend most of the time between 50 and 60,000 after this next wave hits in the spring.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it'll be a very interesting time to see when we hit that $60,000 mark and we have another 40% retracement.
Right. Then Bitcoin crashed again. Then that's all you'll hear is Bitcoin crashed. But it's like, well, if you were in it, then And I learned this a long time ago too. One of the guys. I try not to badmouth too many of these bobbleheads, but one of the bobbleheads I listened to early in my days was Dave Ramsey, and one of the things he taught me was about money management and asset ownership, and essentially, moving money from one asset to another, and when to make value on that exchange. And one of the things he talked about was in the stock market. He was like, if you track it, across the entire history of the stock market, it's gained 8% a year, every year, boom, boom, boom. So that's what he uses. And he said something that stuck with me is he said that you only get hurt on the roller coaster when you get off, right? Mm. And so that's one of the things I try to, focus on in my videos is like, we buy in the red and sell in the green. A lot of people, it's backwards. They want to buy when it's up and sell when it's down, but you never win in that kind of situation, right? And so that's what I do specifically with my charts is I intentionally look for coins that have not broken out yet, that are essentially a bargain on sale, and that's what we buy. So when the market comes back to reality and values again, we're in the money, 20, 30% when they're just now getting on board.
Yeah, that was one of the difficult things for myself was I was able to sell some of the highs almost perfectly on a lot of the extensions, but it was that the impulse on the downward wave that I was like, this is good enough. I was like, right. I'll just enter here. And then I started to notice a very specific trend where when we had big extensions on almost all the digital assets, we'd return down to that 236 line, or sometimes even below the last low. So my patience with actually re-entering coins after selling those high extensions has become significantly stronger. And I agree with you. A lot of people are doing it wrong. They start to chase those uptrends instead of being okay with a valuable position that they can enter like staggered in like over the course of a month. Like Neo for the last 2 months had been at like maybe $25-$30. And then all of a sudden up to 100. Same with Quantum. We were down near the $15 mark, up to 100. And it's those lower entry points you want to look for. But those are the hardest ones to grasp because it doesn't look like the token. People are like, is Neo dead? Like, what's going on? I think the immaturity of the market has done a lot of great things for us and also a lot of bad things. People being able to enter, like my mom and my little brother and my dad all own Bitcoin now since about March, and you would have never had that in the stock market in the early early 1990s. Like I remember trying to convince my parents to buy Google in like around 97, be like, just do it, and they don't have. It's not as easy for them. Whereas buying Bitcoin was actually easier for them than entering the stock market. So we're in this whole new game of play where the immaturity is actually providing to the value because now, or at least the perceived value value. Because why my mom or my dad bought Bitcoin was they started to experience that same thing, the lack of trust in either banks or the governments. You know, where there a lot of people had invested a lot into that. So I think that the loss of the trust, moving into the eco space of blockchain or these disruptive technologies is, just like you said, extremely inspiring, and I'm just humbled and grateful to be a part of the documentation of the revolution. You know, that quote said it won't be televised, but apparently it will be podcast and vlogged.
Right. Yeah, it won't be on television, but it will go viral.
Yeah, everyone will see it still.
Yeah.
Well, it's perfect. Is there anything else you want to leave us out with, where anyone else can check you out? If there's anything we should keep our eyes on?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is really, you know, and you know, being able to spend this time with you. I do appreciate it. So one of the things I would like to, you know, reinforce is just having an overall positivity, you know, about your life, about your money, about your actions, about each other, right? Before anything, we are on this earth together. We coexist together. I breathe the same air you breathe, even though we're on two opposite sides of the world. And I think as long as people remember that, you know, they will not allow themselves to be subdivided into these little facets of someone else's imagination that then detract from the value we could provide to each other as simple human beings, right? That's what the blockchain does. That's what Bitcoin does. That's what cryptocurrency does, is it literally connects the entire world on a seamless, trustless system, meaning you don't have to trust it because it works, right? The thing about the dollar is only as good as the amount of trust that the other person has in accepting it. The minute they stop trusting it, which many people are doing, the less and less and less valuable it becomes. And if you just look at some of the major events happening around the world, you now have nations that are being proactive based on their trust less of the dollar, right? And so now a lot of these same nations and companies and corporations and entities are creating blockchain-based protocols to replace that. And here we are as humans, we're kind of at a fork in the road. Do you want to choose to go down the same path that you were born with, the one door in the maze that was left open for you to walk through? Or do you want to stop, look around, understand you're in a maze, understand that the first rat gets the cheese and no rat ever gets out, and look around for other options? It's a few rats that figured a way out, you know, and they say, hey, come over here. You know, it's a little better over here. Look at the stuff we're building over here. We're building tools. We're building bridges. We're building ladders. We don't have to walk to that. We don't have to fight over that one piece of cheese they left in the middle. We can go create value over here. We don't even value that cheese anymore, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so that's my little, you know, I got every video I do, I got to give a little motivation, like a football coach, you know? So it's like we're literally rebuilding society from the inside out. But as we do that, it's not about the money, because we should not value money. Money is merely a transaction form of value. We should value what we have, right? We should value each other. Money is merely, you know, a receipt trail, you know, that people can give, like, I value this, you value this, you value this. But in all actuality, we're really, you know, escaping from the fact that our time here is literally just the snap of a finger, you know, and we spend too much time chasing a piece of paper instead of valuing each other. So this is what I say on my videos, as we increase our affluence, let us not decrease our influence and the commitment that we have to empowering each other.
On that note, I couldn't have said it any better. I agree that you know, a lot of people come into this market chasing money or paper, and when you get to any particular point in being an entrepreneur where you have the economic energy you can stake for a while, you really start to realize the value of the importance of your community, your physical health, your personal mental clarity, and those things all vastly outweigh any monetary value, and the people in our lives offer us so much more than we could ever put a price on. And I think that this disruptive wave that's going through is really one of the waves that will create the value of the whole economic system as a whole, where we know that the person that beside me has to do well for me to do well. If they're not doing well, I'm also not doing well. Like, my survival relies on you as much as your survival relies on me at this point. So I really appreciate hearing that, and I think everyone in the Bear family will appreciate that as well. Brandon Kelly, it's been a pleasure today. Remember, boss. Oh shit! I forgot your website. Hit me up with that one more time.
Bossofbitcoin.com.
Bossofbitcoin.com, ladies and gentlemen. Remember to check out Brandon Kelly's website, as well as subscribe and like all of his stuff on YouTube. I really love you have this very similar to mentality and direction of myself in this ecosystem, and I really appreciate hearing that, because I think this is that's what it is for me. It's the growth of the community and our ability to operate from peer-to-peer transaction levels. And I couldn't be happier to have you on the show today. Remember to check out all the links below. We will leave them there as well. If Brandon has a Telegram channel or anything like that, I'll make sure it pops down there below. Remember to give us those thumbs up. It helps other people later on down the channel find the information they're looking for. Subscribe, hit the bell, all those fun things that we like to do in social media. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks, Brandon.
Thanks for having me, man. Take it easy.